Hey, Warpugs! Today we're going to be checking out more about the Trek universe. And this is a Patreon request from Real Gamers MMBR, and it's Certifiably Ingame's Sovereign. I think it's a lore video on Sovereign class vessels, Enterprise Z, all the other kind of good stuff. Now, I actually like the Sovereign class. I when I saw it for the first time, when the movie came out after Generations, which I didn't too much like Generations all that much. It just wasn't a thing for me. It just really, really wasn't. First Contact, on the other hand, is my favorite Trek movie besides Wrath of Khan. For that, it was amazingly well done. I love the entire thing, and it's even better when you hear about what happened behind the scenes with the whole thing, where it was supposed to be this completely different thing, and Riker was supposed to stay on the ship and fight the Borg, which I thought would have been an awful decision. Instead, you had Picard fighting the Borg. If you have not seen First Contact, it is 100% the highest recommended movie I could get you to watch from the Trek universe. That is reasonably within the last 20 years. Okay, Wrath of Khan, while it is my favorite, it's my favorite for other reasons. Now we're gonna jump into this. We're gonna learn what he has to say about Sovereign class starships. He knows far more than I do. I know that I like it. He knows a lot more about it. So let's go with Certifiably Ingame, and let's just get into it. One thing I gotta say, I really wish during the Dominion War we had more clips of the Sovereigns fighting. I would have loved to see it. Here we go.
We've taken a look at several ships in Starfleet that have their roots in the 2370s overhaul of the fleets and those that filled specific roles. But what about the one that was to fulfill all missions asked of it? Like the Galaxy class that came immediately before it,
Let me just say something about the Galaxy class. I have mixed feelings about the way that they portrayed the Federation in TNG. I have mixed feelings. First, I really love the fact that they had, it was the Galaxy class as an entity, as an entity itself, was a statement of where the Federation was diplomatically, internally, everything like that. Their status as pacifists, also their status as a superpower, and not, while in universe they did feel contested, they weren't really tested. Now, you couldn't look at the Constitution class and say that it wasn't a ship that was built to defend itself. The Galaxy, on the other hand, the sheer fact that the ship was built and was, in all essences, a capital ship, and people were bringing their families on board and things like that, and the Federation felt comfortable enough to do that with Starfleet and allowed that to happen, says a lot about the state of affairs that the Federation was facing before its encounter with the Borg, and especially before War 359. And I don't even need to mention the Dominion War. The sheer fact that that was allowed speaks so much volume about where it was mentally and the geopolitical state of the Alpha and Beta quadrants at the time. I highly doubt after the Dominion War, civilians, like families, would be allowed on the Galaxy class as it stood. Because you're just asking for a disaster in any kind of hostile encounter. And yeah, while I did like the look of the Galaxy, I did like the feel, I liked everything about it. It just said so much about the Federation and flatly its naivety about its situation. And oh god, I would love to see how the one thing that has never been addressed so far, has not been addressed so far in Trek is they haven't continued the storyline, and I hope they don't do Abrams' Trek. I hope they do Trek as it was, because I don't even view Picard as Abrams' Trek. I'd love to see how things changed after the Dominion War. I would really love to see that. All right, here we go.
The Sovereign was designed to be able to handle anything Starfleet would encounter, and became the poster ship for the organisation, a beacon of what Starfleet stood for, and a versatile, multi-role exploration vessel, and at the time of the line's launch in the 2370s, it was the most advanced vessel put into service,
and it's beautiful,
remaining a staple of the fleet until at least the beginnings of the 25th century. The original design was created by John Eaves for the Star Trek First Contact film, and the original design brief was to have a more battle-orientated look to the new Enterprise, which led to the removal of the typical necks and the more swept-back nacelle pylons, along with
and it's beautiful. It looks very sleek. It looks like a sports car in comparison.
The narrower feel to the vessel. There were even original concepts with the moving nacelles, like those seen on the Intrepid, but the general design profile was to take the oval saucer of the Galaxy class, rotate it to make the ship longer, and then add design elements from ships like the Excelsior and Constitution. In-universe, work on the Sovereign design began in 2365, while the Galaxy was still in the height of service, and projects like the Nova and Intrepid were in development, and as such, it benefited from the numerous technologies being developed around that time. The aim of the Sovereign was effectively to create a successor to the Galaxy class, but spare no expense and skimp on new technology. Not that the Federation uses money, but you get the picture.
Yeah.
The vessel was to embody the pinnacle of design of its era. It shared numerous developments among projects, such as incorporating the bioneural gel pack technology first introduced on the Intrepid class, as well as taking into consideration the damage to subspace that warp drives could cause. Unlike the Intrepid, however, it was not altered to include variable warp geometry, and instead simply developed to create less turbulence to subspace when in high warp factors.
Okay.
Aerodynamics is not a thing in space, but a subspace profile is. It also contributed to the ablative armour systems that would go on to be used on the Defiant and many following ships, as well as being one of the earliest ships to include a dedicated...
Now that's another one of my favorites, new class of ships, a Steamrunner.
Quantum torpedo launcher, accommodating the newly derived projectile device that was also entering production that year. The original prototype for this class was launched in 2370, the USS Sovereign, NCC 73811, and would undergo a further 2 years of shakedowns and testing before the Sovereign line was deemed ready to roll out into production. With so much advanced tech at play, it is no wonder that there were problems with its design at first. Chief among these being that the advanced regenerative shield system went on to draw too much power from the core and was replete with errors, which led to it failing unless supplied with a large amount of energy. So there were many modifications and adaptations to the USS Sovereign that, by the time of the USS Enterprise NCC 1701E was launched in 2372, the second Sovereign ship was rather different to the first, at least internally. In Apocrypha, the second Sovereign vessel was to be the USS Honorius under Captain Morgan Bateson, but after the Enterprise D's loss, Starfleet reassigned the captain, crew, and renamed the vessel as the successor to their flagship. Bateson was apparently fine with this, as he found the Sovereign a little too advanced for his still acclimatizing, temporally displaced self.
I don't know anything about that storyline. If somebody could fill me in the comments section, that would be great.
The Sovereign was equipped with a warp engine capable of cruising at warp 8, 2 factors higher than the Galaxy it was to replace, with a maximum speed of an impressive 9.995. That
absolutely nuts.
May have been closer to 9.975 earlier on in testing, with refinements and refits bringing it to this higher speed. This makes it the fastest vessel at warp of the era, which explains the proportionally large nacelles. This rapid speed made it ideal to fulfill the roles of a long-term exploratory vessel, as it could head into the uncharted space and return in much faster intervals, allowing Starfleet to continue to expand its horizons. This also made it an ideal vessel to respond to a myriad of situations, and Sovereign-class vessels would often find themselves with a surprise assignment which had them deviating course to deal with issues all across Federation space. Posting aboard a Sovereign-class was guaranteed never to be dull. Additionally, the diplomatic suites of a Sovereign were not spared either, with several lounges, recreational facilities and a multitude of quarters. It had a crew of 855 personnel, but could hold up to 6,500 people in an emergency. But even this could be uncomfortably stretched to 9,800 if needed. Its sensor systems were incredibly accurate, but it did lack the additional mission pod attachments of other vessels, meaning that in this one regard, perhaps the Luna could outclass it. Aside from this, however, it was replete with science labs and an array of new technologies, giving it ample utility. Of course, it was also heavily armed, more so even than most other vessels, barring those dedicated escorts such as the Defiant. The original design of the Sovereign had it armed with 14 Type 10 phaser arrays. The mentioned single dedicated quantum torpedo launcher at the fore, accompanied by 2 more regular launchers and 3 more aft ones, for a total of 6 torpedo tubes.
And that's a lot for the Federation. That's a ton.
Then it was overhauled, and the newer refit Sovereign had 16 phaser arrays, and the number of photon torpedo tubes increased by 1 on the fore and 3 towards the rear.
Good God.
Yeah. The Sovereign's weapon systems were pretty much incomparable to its contemporaries, outgunning even the Defiant class, although the Defiant did have the more powerful, dedicated systems, such as the pulse phase cannons. Defiant versus Sovereign. I should make a video. Its powerful impulse engines, too, meant that it was rather fast.
See, even with this ship, the one time the Federation made a dedicated warship in the Defiant, oh, sorry. The one time they made a dedicated warship with the Defiant, it was an absolute monster.
Sublight speeds, and was surprisingly manoeuvrable considering its size, which was a Grand at 685 metres long, 250 metres wide, and 88 tall. It had 24 decks, although some versions had 29, and it had a mass of 3,205,000 metric tons.
That's a lot.
It also had 2 shuttle bays, one on the rear of the saucer and the second at the aft of the vessel, and it could house a wing of fighters, although this never comes into play on screen, nor does the ship's ability to saucer separate. The Sovereign generally is a crowning achievement of Starfleet, and at its launch was the most advanced ship in the fleet, incorporating those technologies that exploded out.
They're just in there yelling. Out
of the desperate push to update their fleet, and it shows. There is not really a role that the Sovereign cannot fulfill, which was the design brief of the vessel, to replace one of the most respected and versatile vessels of the era, the Galaxy.
True.
While its offensive capability was far higher than its predecessor, and it no longer had room to accommodate a civilian presence, the ship retained all the essentials to perform as an explorer too. It's just that it was also expected to patrol and defend alongside these duties, which it did so with vigour. When one of these enters the system, it's a symbol that Starfleet means business, whether in a diplomatic sense or as a military one. All in all, the Sovereign class was the most advanced ship of the time, and this future-proofed its technology, much as the Excelsior was for the 23rd century, seeing its use commonplace even into the year 2402 and hopefully beyond. I've been Rick, and thanks for watching this breakdown of the Sovereign class starship, and I'll see you later for another lore video. Until then, thanks again, and goodbye.
Okay, so 100% for me. Why are they still barking? They have been barking all night. They have been barking all night long. I don't know what the deal is tonight. Like I said, when I first saw this one, when I first saw the Sovereign, I was, let's see, barking at the door, but no one's there. Lovely. They're barking at nothing. They're barking at absolutely nothing. When I first saw the Sovereign on the screen, I was just, it was breathtakingly beautiful to me. I loved the look, the absolute feel of it. It's not as bright and shining. It looks so elegant and sleek. I loved this ship. Let's see. Okay, good. I loved this ship 120%. She's messaged me about the dogs. The war pugs are very, very angry today. But I love this ship from the ground up, from the moment I saw it. And whenever I've played in any kind of game where, you know, you could play around with ships and things like that, I've always wanted my ships to look kind of like this. If I'm playing as anybody with half a mind for anything other than sheer domination, in that case, give me the Gloriana class battleships, give me the Luna class cruisers, give me the Dauntless class, give me the Sword class. Aside from all that, guys, this was Certifiably Ingame. Thank you, Real Gamers MBR, for recommending this. And this was a Patreon request. I'm going to be trying to get to more Patreon requests as they come up. If you'd like to become a Patreon, link will be down in the description below. If you'd like to just simply make a request, just jump in the Discord, look for the request reactions, and jump in there. Guys, I'm going to head out. Certifiably Ingame's links are going to be in the description down below. Go check them out. I think that this has been a really, 9.99, yeah. That's the funny thing about Warp is, the funny thing about the Warp scale is it has been reimagined, revamped, all this other kind of stuff, and Warp 10 was considered this magical number that nobody could get to. In fact, the one time that somebody did was Tom Paris, who wound up turning into some sort of creature, which is weird. Really weird. All things considered, guys, the rate of speeds in the galaxy continue to change, but I would still love to see a regular Trek show that tackled the aftermath of the Dominion War in a way that didn't make me want to slam my head into a wall. That being said, maybe I judged Picard too harshly from the few episodes I watched of it. But if I did, let me know in the description down below. And I'll see you guys next time. I have no funny quip at the end of this. My brain's melting. I'll catch you guys next time.